Alright, hi guys. It is late at night. It's almost 2 in the morning. No, it's like almost 1 in the morning. I'm not editing this video just like the last one. I'm gonna try to keep these types of videos to either minimal or no editing just because I want them to be as real as possible in the way like I want you guys to see my thought process. I know people are eventually gonna be like, well, how many videos you're gonna make? There is no number. It is however many videos it takes. It's not the type of topic that it's going to be talked about once and then everything's cool. Like race in this country, race in general, my experience with racism, which is lifelong. But this isn't about me. This is about all of us, Black people in general. And the title, it's meant to get your attention. I'm going to start off by talking about me just so you guys know where I'm coming from. And then I'll get to kind of the greater point. So clearly I'm Black. I kind of explained a little bit in a video before about my ethnicity. So I'm Black. Black and African American are not synonymous. All African Americans are Black, but not all Black people are African American. I think that's important to note because not everyone understands the difference. I think a lot of people like use the term African American because they want to be politically correct, but it's not always accurate. Like that's like saying every white person is English. Like, yes, every English person is white, but not every white person is English. So, for one, on my mom's side, the white in me comes from Germany. There was a German slave owner, and I'll leave that there. On my dad, the white in me comes from Dutch. I don't know personally. I've never been told if it had anything to do with slave owning, but I would assume because that's how the majority of any sort of mixing was done in this country prior to like the last century and a half, and that's being generous. Earlier, okay, so how do I explain this? I've never lived in an area where it was completely or even majority all Black. My dad lives in a primarily Black area. My mom lived in, I would say, a little bit of like a 50-50, but I didn't. Growing up, I lived in an area in Williamsburg that was predominantly white. Now, there was more of a mix than there is where I live right now, but it was still predominantly white. I lived in a neighborhood called Ford's Colony. You guys can look that up. It is a very nice neighborhood. It's a gated neighborhood. I didn't have a lot of neighbors, but all the neighbors that I did have were white. I'm not going to talk about too much about where I lived because obviously people live there and I don't really want to. I mean, I don't live there anymore, so it's not like endangering me if I say where I used to live. But yeah, so going through school, I was almost every single time the only Black girl in my class. I wasn't always the only Black kid. I went through Montessori school and I didn't really pay attention to race a lot at the time, but obviously looking back, I can see like I don't remember any other Black kids at all. I'm not saying that they weren't there. I just don't have any memories of them because all my friends and the people that I interacted with were white. None of my teachers were Black. I had one teacher. I mean, Montessori school is set up differently. If you guys know what that is, or if you don't, I'm not editing this. I can't put it on the screen, but you guys can go look it up. I had one teacher that at the time I didn't know what she was. I mean, I didn't know a lot of things growing up, but looking back, I know she's Muslim. She had a hijab on, so, but no Black teachers. Moving into elementary school, kindergarten, no other Black girls in my class. I had one Black kid in my class, and I think he was mixed. If he wasn't mixed, he was light skinned. His name was Kobe. Then first grade, I was one of 2 Black girls. The rest of my class was white. My teacher was white. Kindergarten, I had 2 teachers. One was Black, one was white. Then when I was 7 years old, my dad was expanding his law practice because he's a lawyer, and he moved us up to the Washington, D.C. area. I do not live in D.C., but I live right outside of it. I live in the metropolitan area, which I think a lot of people would assume that means like I live near a lot of Black people, but my county, I've said before, and it's not me trying to brag, it's just the truth, is, and I know this because it was ingrained in me ever since I moved here, is one of the richest counties in the state, if not the entire country. I live in a very nice neighborhood. I live in a gated neighborhood. It has a waterfall in the front. I don't want to say my neighborhood because I don't want to expose where I live. But yeah. And as you can imagine, this area is at least 90%, and that's me being nice, white. And so living here and having almost all my neighbors being white, everyone in my classes up until I was in 4th grade being white, and now even then there's only one other black girl in my class. And then 5th grade, it was right back to me being the only one being white. And then, even middle school, I mean, there's more of a mix, but almost anyone and everyone that I ever associated with and became friends with was white because that was what was presented to me. And I didn't know that it was wrong or weird for me to associate with people outside of my race. I didn't know what that was like. I mean, I was never given the opportunity to only associate with my race because I never had enough people to where I could only ever associate my race. And that did shape, obviously, the way that I talk, the way I carry myself. And everyone loves to call me the white black girl because I talk a certain way, because I'm like certain things. But that's not me being white. That's me being a product of where I grew up and where I live. Any more than if I lived where I used to live, I would have a southern accent right now. Or maybe I wouldn't, wear my hair a certain way or dress a certain way, because everything is cultural. There's a bunch of different cultures within the United States, depending on where you live, depending on where you grew up, and that shapes you as a person. So I grew up in a very white area, so I talk white, but you can't even talk, we're not going to get into it. So that's my background. My entire friend group, my close friends, all of them are white. And I've gotten no end of criticism from my parents, from people that don't know me, from people that think they know me but they don't know me, everyone, for, oh, how come you don't have any black friends? For one, I do have black friends, they're just not my close circle. But it's because the black people in my area and I are not the same. And that actually was hard for me in sophomore year, when I was given the opportunity to be friends with a lot more black people than I guess I had been given an opportunity to be friends with before, because the way that we conversed was not similar, and the way that we carried ourselves was not similar, and different things, that there was just a disconnect. But having your really close friends being white and you being black can be an issue. For one, the friends that I have now, none of them actively try to make me feel lesser than because of my race. I think that every now and again it happens, and I don't think that they realize they're doing it. I don't think it's ever intentional. Sometimes they crack jokes here and there, and I kind of shut it down because I'm like, that's not funny to me. But for the most part, I mean, they know who I am, and we've been friends for years. They know what's funny and what's not for me. I did have a friend that, trust me, there will be videos about her because she was insane. That I had to cut off, in part because of how racist she was. There were a lot of other things that went into us not being friends anymore, but that was a huge part of it for me. Now my other friends that were part of our friend group didn't experience that because they were white, but this person that I used to be friends with was openly racist. One of her things that she would do when she would meet someone new was say, "Do you like Indian people? I don't like Indian people." That was her thing. We became friends when we were young, and she grew into a person that I did not want to associate myself with. And after my friendship ended with her, she came up to my job and called me, and I don't cuss, B word, the A word, then the N word at my job, and then tried to get me fired after. So I've dealt with racism. I dealt with it from friends. I've dealt with it from people that don't know me. Yada, yada, yada. I don't think that anyone would sit here and think that there's an 18-year-old in this country that's black that hasn't dealt with racism. And being in a white area and having all your friends be white makes you have to deal with racism in a different way. Because the conversations make them uncomfortable. And the things that are racist, but they don't think are racist, become an issue. Something as simple as the N-word, and I'm telling you, I've made at least 10 videos about the N-word, and I don't post them because they end up being 45 minutes long. Yeah, you don't know how much I could spiel about the N-word. Which, by the way, first, if I have clothes on, I don't think it looks like I do, but I do. I don't know who has heard me say the N-word sober. I think the only time I've said the N-word in my entire life that I can remember is me being at a frat party and I was drunk and I was singing part of a song. Outside of that, the only times I've said the N-word were times where my friends peer pressured me into it. Because one of my friends had a boyfriend and he was black, and this friend that I'm no longer friends with, the one I talked about, was like, Chanel, go up to him and be like, what's up, my? And like, I didn't mind you, I didn't even know this guy. Like, I knew of him, like, we knew of each other, but like, we weren't friends. Like, I didn't have any sort of relationship with him at all, like, in terms of like, nothing. And they just wanted me to say it because, oh, I'm black, so you can say it. And this friend had been pressuring me for months to be like, Chanel, why can't I say the N-word? Why don't you let me say the N-word? Like, you're my friend, like, it shouldn't be a big deal. The N-word should be off limits to everyone. Black people don't say it because we think it's right. We say it because we're trying to reclaim the word. And I don't even say it. I don't say it because I recognize who my friends are and who I'm around. And if I say it, it immediately opens the door for them to think it's okay for them to say it. And I don't even think that it's something that should be said. We know where it originates. We know why it's a thing. Why? I get why it's said, and I think that some people get it honest. But for me, I didn't grow up in an environment where I even heard it. I eventually learned what it was, but I didn't ever have it, or it was just like common or normal for me to say it. And so I don't have any desire or want to say it. I don't get offended when a black person calls me that right off the bat, because for them it's like, oh, well, why would you get offended? And I let them know really quickly, like, hey, I don't really appreciate being called that word, and it's never an issue. Black people don't have another. They're not like, oh, why don't you want to be called the N-word? Like, they get it. Like, it's an immediately click. Like, it's not a problem. But a white person, if I say, hey, don't call me the N-word, which if it's the first time offense, especially if you like really don't know me that well, I don't make it a big deal. I'm just like, don't call me the N-word. And then they have a problem with it because they're like, well, why didn't... I've had certain jokes made about the chicken and the watermelon and the sunburn, and certain things are funny. I'll say they're funny, especially like if we're friends. Now, we're not friends. Certain things should just be common sense. Don't say it. But even if we are friends, like, there comes a point where it's funny, and then there comes a point where it's racist. And it's not this whole thing of, oh, not to be racist, but if you have to say that, then it's racist. Don't even question it. Being the black friend has been an issue for me. And so I tread carefully, because I recognize where I am. What I do matters. It influences my friends and my peers to think that, oh, well, if Chanel's okay with it, other black people must be okay with it. And for one, I'm not a poster child, and I shouldn't be, any more than I wouldn't want what someone else is okay with or comfortable with to then extend to, oh, Chanel's okay with it and comfortable with it. Because not all black people are the same. No one of any race is entirely the same. So having these uncomfortable topics come up when it comes to racism, and all my friends being white, and so they don't really understand why things are wrong because they don't have a first-hand experience with it or understand how it affects me, even if they can hear it on paper or see it on paper. They all had the privilege of learning about racism in a classroom, learning about slavery and all these other things, Jim Crow, in a classroom. They don't have ancestors that have been slaves. They don't have a grandmother who can remember Jim Crow, or grandparents for me. They don't have first-hand experience with the racism that I've dealt with. And we can talk about reverse racism. That could be its own separate thing. I'm not going to get into it in this video. But it's not the same, to say the least. And so these conversations, these uncomfortable conversations, that, trust me, I don't want to have it any more than my friends or these other people want to have it. They need to be had, because when you don't talk about it, to say the least, it becomes a problem. You're not going to want to hear this if you're white. I get it. It might become offensive to you. Take offense if you want to. I can't change what you get offended by. The reason white people are the ones that say this, for the most part, are always talking about, oh, why did black people make everything about race? We didn't make it about race. You did. We didn't ask to come to this country. You forced us here. You use our labor to build this country. You stole our culture from us and renamed it to be your own. You killed us, you lynched us, you tortured us, you humiliated us for centuries. And then, at some point, partly because of states' rights, it became, oh, maybe we shouldn't be killing black people just because they're black. Maybe we shouldn't think less of black people, treat them like animals just because they're black. Maybe we shouldn't rely on black people to build us up and take things from them, which, by the way, all these inventions that you guys think were built by white people, made by white people, lies. Dishwasher, black person. Light bulbs, black person. You don't know this, okay? So that happens. Civil War happens, which the fact that the Confederate flag is standing because of states' rights, don't even, let's not talk about that. That happens. Slavery is abolished. Okay. So then, well, slavery is abolished, but we can't have black people actually feeling like, they're actual people. So we'll put in Jim Crow. We'll make them separate but equal. We'll have them not even be allowed to share the same water fountain or read the same books, or be in the same areas, public areas, sit down in the same pace on the bus. Civil rights movement. MLK, peaceful protester, shot and killed. Never in a million years, never during his entire life did he advocate for violence. He spoke out against it. Revolutionized the country. Killed. Peaceful protester. Rosa Parks thrown in jail for sitting down in a seat on the bus. Malcolm X, which I understand, I get it, but he's not even taught in school. I had no clue who Malcolm X was until my parents told me about it. I didn't know that it was there's a black national anthem until my parents told me about it. I don't know a lot of different things that are very pertinent to this country, so my parents told me about it. Because white people are uncomfortable for the conversation. I don't blame anyone in today's society that's my age or close to my age for the sins of their ancestors. It's not your fault. They did what they did. But so instead of saying, cool, I don't want to talk about it, how about say, cool, I don't want that to be part of my legacy, so let me do what I can to change it. Instead of stealing black culture with the braids and the lip injections and the butt lifts and the hair crimping and saying the N-word and listening to rap music and all this other crap. Instead of just doing that, which, hey, I get it, our culture's cool. But then when someone like George Floyd gets killed, or Ahmaud Arbery, or a million other people, you stay silent. You guys want to say the N-word, but if someone calls someone a Karen, you guys get offended. Karen's a name. It has nothing to do with hate. It's not a hate. It's a joke. It's like saying, okay, boomer. Like, it's a joke. The N-word was founded in hate. We know that. Silence around these subjects and not having the uncomfortable conversations allows racism to stand. Because you don't want to talk about it. Like, we didn't make it about race. Everything in this country has been made about race, and we're not the ones that put the system in place. Okay? There had to be an amendment just to give black people the right to be treated like people and to vote. And by the way, black women specifically have been allowed to vote for less than 100 years. We weren't allowed to vote until 1965. But that's not taught in school. I didn't know that until I found about it on Instagram, which is why I feel like social media is a great thing. It can be a great thing. We weren't allowed to fight for this country, which I don't even believe in war. I'm a pacifist. Don't believe in military. That's all. I know people are going to come for me about that, but I'm just stating how I feel. We weren't allowed to attend the same schools. We didn't make it about race. These rules that were put in place, these laws that were put in place, we didn't do that. We weren't even allowed to be a part of the government. First black man ever elected into presidential office happened less than 10 years ago. Sorry, almost, no, 2008, 2009, so a little over 10 years ago. Sorry, that was my mistake. And then we got Donald Trump after that. So we didn't do this at all. We don't want this, and it's not our fault. I don't blame. I'm trying to be careful with my words. White privilege is not something you choose. I get that. You're born into being white the same way I'm born into being black. It's not your fault. You didn't choose your race any more than I chose mine. But I get punished for something that I didn't choose, and you get a benefit for something that you didn't choose. I'm more likely to get shot by the police or be killed by the police because of my skin color. I'm more likely not to make as much money because of my skin color. You are more likely to have peaceful interactions with police. And the thing is, people are going to come and say to me, oh, well, that's not true. I think that take out what's happening in the news. My personal experience with the police that I mentioned in my last video. I got pulled over in my friend's car in a school zone. We were like 2 seconds away from our schools, 2 turns before you get into our school. She went 53 and a 35. She knew it was a 35. I didn't even know it was a 35 because I couldn't drive at the time. She gets pulled over. Police officer comes. I put my hands on the dash because I know what's going on. I know that I'm not going to be another statistic, not for no reason. I put my hands on the dash. She asked me what I'm doing. I said I'm keeping my hands visible. She said, can you get my license registration? I said, no, you need to do that because I'm not moving my hands. He comes up. Did you know you went 53 and 35? No, whatever. Basically, all in all, she gets left off. She didn't get a warning. She got no ticket, nothing. Happy day. I get pulled over a couple months later once I could drive in my car. The exact same offense. I was going 53 and a 35, and now given, I thought I was in a 45. Didn't know that was my fault. But, so I get pulled over. Now, mind you, we both have white police officers. My police officer leaves me in the car for 10 minutes. Doesn't tell me what he's doing. After he, comes up, license registration, my hand's 10 and 2. I tell him, okay, I'm going to reach to get my license and registration. I told him exactly what I was doing that way. And mind you, I'm recording on my phone. He takes it, doesn't tell me what the heck he's doing, which I feel like it's partly your job to tell you the person that you're having an interaction with what you're doing. He asked me how old I was after I gave him my license registration, which he could see on my license how old I was. I was like a month or 2 away from turning 17, I think. I don't remember. Goes, takes my stuff to run it. It's gone for like 10 minutes. I have no clue what's going on. I have a panic attack. I start freaking out. I'm crying. Comes up, says, I'm going to give you a ticket. He sees me crying. He says, honey, it's not that serious. Thinking, oh, it's not that serious because you're just going to speed me ticket. He didn't understand that I was scared for my life. So, all to say, I get a ticket for doing the exact same thing. No prior offenses, nothing. She got nothing. I'm not dead. I'm thankful that I'm still here. I didn't commit like a violent offense or anything that was, not standard. I mean, a lot of people get speeding tickets, but I got something and she didn't. And there were less people in my area than hers. Hers was in a school district. Mine was in a very clear road that no one even really uses. Basic example of white privilege. Caitlin Bennett. Gun girl. Open carried an AR-10, if I'm not wrong. Some sort of rifle. On her college campus. White. Female. Nothing's wrong. Posts about it on YouTube, puts all sorts of pictures all over social media, boasts about it. She's open carried before. Like the whole quote, like, I carry, right? Right? Tamir Rice would have been 17 today. He was a 12-year-old black boy that got killed by the police for having a BB gun. And somehow white privilege isn't a thing. Black 12-year-old boy with a BB gun? white female, open carrying an assault rifle. I get pulled over, and because of my skin color, I raise more suspicion than someone that's white. Even though we live in the same neighborhood, not me and her don't live in the same neighborhood. I actually live in a nicer neighborhood than her. And that's not me trying to, she knows that. Like, everyone talks about where I live, but whatever. We live in the same area, go to the same school. My mom has worked for NASA, the Pentagon. Now she works for NATO, so do I. My dad is a lawyer. But I've had people at my job say, oh, wait, you have money? Because I'm black, they assume that I don't. They hear my dad's a lawyer, they hear my mom's an engineer, and they're shocked. They would hear that from a white person, it wouldn't even be a question. I'm mad. If that wasn't clear, I'm very mad, and so I'm trying hard just to get you guys to see what I see. This country was founded on genocide, built on the backs of slaves, and to this day remains systematically racist on purpose. There's no one on earth that's going to tell me differently. The government's not stupid. I mean, they're stupid in some ways, but they're not that stupid. They know what they're doing. Institutions and all, they know what they're doing. They don't want us at power. They don't want black people, people of color in general, in power because they know that we would change things. And they don't want their privilege gone. They don't want what they benefit from day in and day out gone. Black people have to work twice as hard to get half as much. And even that's not enough. My neighborhood, and this will be the last thing I say, it's really white. I've never, ever, ever, no. There's been one family that I know of in this neighborhood that's been black. That I've personally interacted with. Not saying that there aren't more, but this neighborhood is very expensive. My parents work really, really hard for everything that they have and all the money that they make. So do I. Because I don't 100% rely on my parents for all the money. I'm not a trust fund kid. But they both work really hard. And there's been times where my mom has had more than one job. And there are a lot of people, a lot of women in this neighborhood that are stay-at-home moms and that their husbands don't work all that much. But they're in a position to do that because they have the privilege to sit there and say, well, because my husband's white, he's more likely to get a promotion. Because my husband's white, he's more likely just to be settled with better pay off the bat, which you don't think that there's a gap when it comes to race. I mean, we know about the gender wage gap, but you don't think there's a gap when it comes to race? Look it up. They don't have to worry about it. We do. And because now I've ranted for a while, and I feel like I did veer off the path that I planned to go down, I mean, I'm going to end this video, and I know it's really long. But I said this in my Instagram post, and I'll say it again. I'm tired of how sick this country is when it comes to race. And I'm sick of Black Lives Matter being a hashtag or a saying to get clout or recognition but you don't want it to change anything. I swear this will be the last thing I say. If you don't think white privilege is real, would you want to trade lives with a black person? And definitely not for a week, not for a day. And definitely, would you choose to trade lives with a black person? Whether it's me, whether it's someone down the street, whether it's someone in the news, would you? And if you don't say yes, that's your answer.